Delighted to welcome you to this exciting event and relevant topic on AI. Uh, as we look back, the impact of the internet over the last 30 years has really changed the way we communicate with each other. And each decade since has created a huge leaps in how technology advances have impacted us. Today, it's the age of AI, and it has really progressed past the stage progressed through the stage of early adoption and is rapidly becoming part of our core businesses. Today, we see AI in different elements and AI-driven algorithms in different elements around us in each part of business. In the airline industry, it's affecting the pricing on the tickets, and when we travel, it helps to guide the plane to our destination. In the auto, rail, and maritime industries, it's increasingly been used in navigation, in guidance, and in safety systems. In financial services, we're seeing it helps decide whether we get a loan, what insurance we get, and it's protecting us on suspicious activities on our accounts. We see in the energy and utilities industry that it's helping CSR representatives access information when we make a customer inquiry. But in the future, I think it's going to more and more affect the analysis of smart metering data for both energy and water metering in our homes on how we consume those utilities. And in the media, it's increasingly generating the media that we consume by its ability to generate images and also create contextual context. As an Irishman, I have heard that Bono has said that the new U2 album that's going to land on your iPhone unexpectedly before the end of the year will be generated completely by generative AI. So we'll have to stay tuned for that one. But as we look to the future, I think this decade is really about the leap forward that AI may impact for us. And with that in mind, I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion tonight from both our guest speaker and the group of panel about some of the real world examples of how to integrate AI in our businesses, and the challenges and benefits that has on that journey. Our marketing and events team have done a fantastic job bringing this event together in this beautiful venue. And I'd also like to welcome our partner, OpenText, and Andrew Green, who I'd encourage you to chat through during the night, who's co-hosting the event with us. Our AI demo hub is downstairs, so during the break and after the event, please stop by and see some of the innovation and some good discussions on the future of AI within each of our businesses. And with that, I'd like to introduce our host, Nikki, who's going to introduce our guest speaker and host us for this evening's event.
Thank you very much, Stephen. He stole a lot of my lines there, but it's all good. A very warm welcome, everybody. It's so fantastic to see so many of you in what I have to say is one of the snazziest buildings I've ever been in. We've got a fantastic event up our sleeves for you tonight, as Stephen alluded to there, integrating AI events that Expleo have put on. We've got a fantastic panel. Trust me when I say you will be going home having learnt lots tonight. And we've also got a brilliant keynote speaker. I'm going to introduce them all shortly. But before I do, quick introduction to me. My name's Nikki Dean. I'm a technology presenter, which means that I get to talk a lot about technology and interview the likes of our fantastic guests that we'll have today, which is a huge honour. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here tonight to share the evening with you. I have to do a quick bit of housekeeping, but I will keep it brief. The most important part you'll probably want to know about is drinks. Hopefully you've all brought a full drink up with you. If at any point during the evening you do want to top up, just pop your hand up. We've got some fantastic nodding there in the audience. They'll top you up. So we'll make sure that you're refreshed so that that brain is in good shape to be taking in all the information that we'll be sharing with you. The toilets, I'm sure you've already found them, are downstairs, and there's no planned fire alarm. So we can crack on with what we're all here to do, which is have a fantastic evening. Okay, so are we all ready for this evening? Yes, there you go. I always like to get a woo in before we start. Gets the energy going. I can tell that you're a great crowd. Our panellists, I'll introduce them by first name for now, but I will give you a full introduction when they come up a little bit later on. We've got Daniel Parrell, Jane and Dinesh, who will be sharing their wisdom with you. But before all of that, to set the tone, we have secured a fantastic keynote speaker. Daniel Hume, who you'll meet shortly, is an AI and emerging technology expert. He's CEO of Satalia as well as Chief AI Officer at WPP, and he's recognized as one of the top 10 Chief AI Officers globally. Can we have a woo? That is not bad. Thank you. I told you we weren't messing about here tonight. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to hand over to the expert, Daniel, who will set the tone for this evening, and then we'll have our panel. But do not fear, if at any point you think of any fantastic questions, keep them racked up, because we will have a short break, after which there'll be 15 minutes that we throw out to the audience, so you will get your chance. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Daniel Hume.
All right. Okay, we've got a lot of ground to cover in 15 minutes, so forgive me, I'm going to speak quickly. I've been involved in AI for 25 years. I started a company about 17 years ago that's been building AI solutions for some of the biggest companies in the world. I sold that to WPP, the biggest marketing company in the world, about 3 years ago, where I'm continuing to be the CEO of Satalia. Think of Satalia as being DeepMind, and also I'm the Chief AI Officer, so I coordinate AI across about 120,000 people. That's good fun. And I've just started a company to solve machine consciousness. Maybe we can talk about after a few more drinks. So I guess I'm going to talk about AI. So when I build systems, there are usually kind of three parts. There's a data part, there's some sort of insights part, and then there's some sort of decision-making part. And if I build a system that I give data to, and it makes a decision, and tomorrow I give it the same data, it makes the same decision, what I have is automation. And automation is amazing because we can get computers to do things better than human beings. But does anybody know the definition of stupidity? What's the Exactly, it's doing the same thing over again and expecting a different answer. I would argue that by definition, automation is stupid. It's not AI, and there are unfortunately many definitions of AI. The most popular definition, I think, is the weakest definition, which is getting computers to do things that humans can do. So over the past 3 years, we've managed to get machines to recognize objects in images, to correspond in natural language, and when we get machines to behave like humans, because humans are the most intelligent thing we know in the universe, we assume that that's intelligence. I would argue that humans are not that intelligent. That's a different conversation. There's a much better definition of AI that comes from the definition of intelligence. Instead of using human beings as the pinnacle of intelligence, it's a very elegant definition, which is goal-directed adaptive behavior. Goal-directed in the sense I'm trying to route my vehicles to maximize deliveries, or I'm trying to allocate my workforce to maximize utilization, or spend my marketing money to maximize reach. Behavior is how quickly I can move towards that goal. And we'll talk about this later on. It's actually very difficult to make these decisions. But the key word in this definition is adaptive. What you want to do is build systems that make decisions, learn about whether those decisions are good or bad, adapt themselves so next time they make better decisions. And if I'm being honest with you all, you tend not to see adaptive systems in production. Most systems in production are automation. So if I held what we currently do in industry to this definition, one might controversially argue that nobody's doing AI. And that's a ridiculous comment because I've built an entire career around AI. There's actually, looking at AI through definitions or through technologies is not a very helpful thing to do. So I'm going to give you a different framework to think about AI. I actually believe that there are 6 applications of AI that can be applied to any friction across any supply chain in any industry. So I'll say that again. All of the frictions that we experience across our organizations can be mapped to one of 6 applications. And the first application actually is task automation. The fact is, if you apply simple algorithms, if then else statements, macros, robotic process automation, you can drive a massive amount of value. You don't need to gravitate to new shiny technologies like generative AI and machine learning. The second category is content generation. Now, large language models give everybody the ability to create any generic content. The battleground for organizations is not creating generic content. The battleground is creating brand-specific, production-grade, differentiated content. That's the battleground. And doing that is actually very, very hard. WPP create like a third of the world's advertising content. Creating content that's brand-specific, production-grade, is actually the battleground, and it's very difficult. The third category is human representation. So a few years ago, I'd be talking about how we can use AIs to replace human beings with things that look and behave exactly like a human being, call centers and things like that. One of the ideas I want you to take away today is a concept that in WPP we call audience brains. So for the first time ever, we can build AIs that don't just create content, but are able to recreate how people perceive content. So if I show you an ad or a policy or some promotional material, historically I didn't know what goes on in your mind and body. For the first time ever, we can build brains that recreate how people think and feel about things. We can use those signals to create better content or promotional material or whatever, and also more accurately predict activation. Audience brains are actually a very powerful idea. The fourth category is insight extraction. I would argue giving human beings better insights hasn't typically led to better decisions. But the power of machine learning, the power of data science, is not in making predictions. The power in machine learning and data science is explaining predictions. So again, I'm in the ad world now, unfortunately. If I show you an ad with a black cat, I can predict the clicks, likes, and sales. But what machine learning can do is, if you implement it correctly, it can say, Daniel, if you change that from a black cat to a ginger cat, you're going to get more clicks, likes, and sales because that person likes Garfield. Now, it's a terrible example, but the point is that machine learning can extract insights about the world that allow you to make better decisions. The fifth category is complex decision making. Now, I'm just going to explain how hard it is to make complex decisions. Imagine you have 5 staff members. And what you want to do is allocate 5 staff members to 5 jobs. How many ways can I allocate 5 people to 5 jobs? How many possible solutions are there? Do you remember that factorial in school? Exactly, 5 times 4 times 3 times 2. There's 120 possible ways to allocate 5 people to 5 jobs. I've got 15 people. How many ways can I allocate 15 people to 15 jobs? And don't say 15 factorial, that's cheating. Don't say 15 factorial. How many ways can I allocate 15 people to 15 jobs? Over 1 trillion possible solutions. One rule to take away today, anything more than 7, don't use a human for. Once you reach about 60 things you have to consider, there are more possible solutions than there are atoms in the universe. You've got lots of these problems in your organizations, and usually human beings are solving them badly, or you're using algorithms to solve them badly. And this is not generative AI, it's not machine learning. If you're old enough, it used to be called operations research. It's discrete mathematics optimization. The final category is human augmentation. So a few years ago, I'd be talking about how we can use exoskeletons and cybernetics to make ourselves faster, better, and stronger. One of the things that we're doing with one of the biggest brands in the world, I can't tell you who, but this is going to sound really creepy, but for each one of their employees, we create a large language model that's trained on their email, their calendar, their Slack, their feedback, and we ask that digital you, if I put you on this project, will you work well? If I put you on this team, will you thrive? And that's being embraced by those employees because they feel like their digital twin represents them better than 5 numbers in a HR database, and it really does. So what's going to happen over the coming years is that we're going to have digital twins, not just of our professional lives being used to make decisions about utilization and career development, but we're also creating digital twins of your personal lives. They'll be called digital assistants. They're not really assistants. They're digital yous, trained on your data, your hopes, your dreams, your desires. And as a marketing company, we need to learn to market not just to people, we need to learn to market to AI, which is a completely different paradigm. So those are the 6 categories, and the reason why I love them is because they also help you navigate this complex world of AI safety, security, ethics, governance. There's a huge amount of misunderstanding, misinformation associated with these words. When deploying AI in production, there are 3 questions you need to ask yourself. The first question is the intent appropriate? It's an ethical question. And I know there's lots of people, forgive me if you've done this, rebranded themselves as AI ethicists. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as AI ethics. Ethics is the study of right and wrong. And the difference between AIs and human beings is that human beings have intent. AIs don't have intent. And there are already processes and structures and methodologies to scrutinize intent. There's 2 other questions you need to ask yourself is, are my algorithms explainable? The difference between software and AI, really, is that AIs tend to be opaque in terms of how they make their decisions. If you make them explainable, then you make them transparent, auditable, governable. It solves a lot of these words. The final question you need to ask yourself is not what happens if my AI goes wrong. As engineers, when we build systems, we identify failure points and we try to mitigate them. But you now have to ask yourself, for the first time ever, what happens if my AI goes very right? You can overachieve your goal, and that overachieving your goal can actually cause harm elsewhere in the supply chain. So I'm sure you've all heard this before, but if I built an AI and I gave it the task to eradicate cancer, what's the easiest way of eradicating cancer? Eradicating humans, exactly. So we have to be very careful about mitigating the risk of AIs going very right. And I've done lots of projects where it's overachieved its goal and it's caused harm elsewhere. There are 3 types of AI risk. The first one are what I call micro risks, deploying these technologies in production in a safe and responsible way. The second set of risks are called malicious risks, which are preventing bad actors from creating pathogens and cyber attacks. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the role of the government. And I do a lot of work with the government to help them understand how to navigate this space. The final set of risks are what I call macro risks, which is the impact that these technologies are going to have on society. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So you might have all heard the word singularity. Singularity? You're all AI philosophers now. Singularity it comes from physics. It's a point in time that you can't see beyond. And it was adopted by the AI community to refer to the technological singularity, which is a point in time where we build a brain 1,000,000 times smarter than us. And I'll come back to that in a minute. I actually think there are 6 singularities. You might have all heard of the PESTLE framework: political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental. So PESTLE is a macro framework. So I'm just going to go through them now and argue that there are a pestle of singularities. The political singularity is a post-truth world, a world where we no longer know what is true. So AI, misinformation, bots, deepfakes have challenged our political foundations, and they will continue to challenge our political foundations, but they're also now starting to challenge the fabric of our reality. So with 3 seconds of your voice and a few images, I can clone you. And I know people who are being attacked by clones of their children, of their work colleagues. If you Google WPP CEO clone, Mark Reed was cloned 3 months ago, and somebody tried to set up a board meeting to commit fraud. And I actually think that we can use AI to solve this problem. I think we can mitigate the risk of a post-truth world. The second singularity is the environmental singularity, which is the point in time where we lose control of our ecosystem. Now, we know that AI is increasing consumption. And as far as I'm concerned, consumption gives people access to goods and services that typically enrich their lives. We know it's putting pressure on our planetary boundaries, but I know that if we apply AI in the right way across our supply chains, we could at least half the amount of energy that we need to run the planet. And the reason why I know that is because when I go and solve Tesco's last mile delivery problem or workforce allocation for PwC, we typically reduce the amount of carbon by about 25%. If you can optimize across your supply chains, create digital twins of entire companies, you can reduce the amount of carbon even more. We can reduce the amount of carbon by at least half and unlock more capacity if we apply AI in the right way. The third singularity, the social singularity, is not my expertise, but this is the point in time where we cure death. There are scientists that believe there are people alive today that don't have to die. AI is advancing medicine. It's able to monitor ourselves and clean ourselves out. And a bit like a car, if you stay on top of damage, that car will never, ever break down. And I don't know what the world will look like when we realize there are people amongst us that won't have to die. In fact, actually, I just signed up to a website called tomorrow.bio. For $25 a month, the price of a cappuccino a week, if you die, they will freeze you. They don't know how to wake you up yet, but ultimately, for $25 a month, you can cheat death. The fourth singularity is the technological singularity. I've already mentioned this. This is a point in time where we become the second most intelligent species on our planet. Now, my community felt this wasn't going to happen for another 30 or 40 years. We now think it's going to happen in the next 10 or 20 years. My advice to people is that when it comes, look busy, be nice to each other, and hopefully it will bugger off to a different dimension. That's what I hope will happen. And in fact, actually, I've just started a research company on the side to try to solve machine consciousness. I can talk about this later on if you want, but I believe that building conscious superintelligence is probably a lower risk than building zombie superintelligence, where it eradicates humans without thinking about the consequences. The fifth singularity, the legal singularity, is when surveillance becomes ubiquitous. And what I mean by that is, but WPP advertising is in the business of understanding perception. We're also in the business of influencing perception, and AI can do this incredibly well. And that is an incredibly powerful position to be in. And we need to do that safely and responsibly. And we also have to mitigate bad actors from using these technologies to accumulate more wealth and more power. And again, I think that we can solve these problems. The final singularity is my favorite singularity. I'm nearly done. Which is called the economic singularity. It was coined by a very good friend of mine called Callum Chase. Highly recommend his books. This is the point in time where we automate the majority of human labor. Now, I can't talk about AI without its impact on jobs. And for the past 17 years, I've been building AI solutions and freeing people from mundane, repetitive, structured tasks. Those people have not lost their jobs. Those people have gone on to do more important, more impactful, purposeful things. And I think the next 10 years, we're going to see a Cambrian explosion of the same. New innovations, new opportunities will be created. AI is like an energy source that will allow humanity to grow to the next level. Beyond 10 years, I don't think anybody knows what they're talking about. And to give you the two extremes of the argument, the first extreme is that if we can free up whole jobs with AI, we probably will. The pressure to reduce costs, increase profits, and if that happens very quickly, our economies won't be able to rebalance, and it will lead to social unrest. And I think that UBI, 4-day working weeks, these are all mechanisms to mitigate some of these risks. The other extreme of the argument, bear with me here, it's quite controversial, is that we should be accelerating as fast as possible to the economic singularity. If we can remove the friction, which by the way usually means human labor, from the production and dissemination of goods like food, healthcare, education, energy, transport, we can bring the cost of those goods down to zero. So imagine being born into a world where you might not access paid work, but everything that you need to survive and thrive as a human is free. People say, Daniel, what would I do if I didn't have a job? A job defines who I am as a human being. I know lots of people who don't have jobs. They're not sitting at home bored and depressed. I sold my company for a rumored $100 million a few years ago. I never have to work ever again. I'm working harder now than I've ever worked. Most of the people I know that don't have to work, they're not sitting at home bored and depressed. They're trying to use their time and their energy to try and contribute to humanity. So I'm going to ask you a question. What would you do if you didn't have to do paid work and everything was free? What would you do? So that's usually people say golf. That's the first one. I'm sure some of you are thinking of golf, improving your handicap. Then you travel, indulge in your hobbies, spend more time with your friends and family, and then you keep pushing people to say the same thing, which is I want to do something that contributes to humanity. I think we all have an innate desire to want to make the world a bit better. Unfortunately, we're born into economic constraints preventing us from doing that. If we apply AI in the right way over the coming decade, we can free people from those economic constraints, enabling them to live their true humanity, enabling them to contribute to the world to make it a bit better. And I think I'm just going to close by saying, and you know this already, it's not good enough for organizations just to have a strong, profitable business. You need to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you're not going to attract AI talent, and you're not going to attract customers. And I think it's actually the collective purpose of enterprise that will make the world better for all of us. If you think about your purpose, if you think about the purpose of the brands that you consume from, if AI can help you achieve that purpose, actually it's that collective purpose of enterprise that makes it awesome. I'm going to stop now. Thank you for listening.
Wow. I think I speak on, can you hear me? I think I speak on behalf of all of us there when I say, wow, thank you very much. He gave us real food for thought. Like, imagine if none of us had to work, hey? But we are, for now anyway. So we're going to have a fantastic discussion about how you can implement and integrate AI solutions or scale if you're already using them at large with our absolutely brilliant panelists. I'm looking at them here now on the front row. Let's see if what we practice getting to your seats will work now. Please welcome to stage our first panelist. We've got Parol Cowell-Green, global executive and economist with over 2 decades of experience in financial services industry. She's recognized amongst the top 10 powerful women in insurtech and fintech in Europe. Also co-author of the AI book and founder and CEO of a consulting company that advises financial services companies on a digital and sustainable future. And that is just a small part of your bio. Please, round of applause for Parol. Thank you for being here with us today. I'll move over so we can invite our next guest up. Jane Smith, please make your way to the stage. Jane is Chief Data Officer at Simply Business. She's worked in data and tech for 18 years, both in consulting and industry, and held many data leadership roles, including but not limited to Ipsos and GlaxoSmithKline, and she's recognized as a thought leader in this space. Jane, round of applause for Jane. Thank you for being here. And last but no means least, I'm sure lots of you know him already, Dinesh Mohan, Global Head for Digital and Technology at Expleo, and a fabulous chap as well. Worked with him last year here. Great to have you again on the panel. Dinesh is responsible for enabling the digital transformation of Expleo's global clients, data and AI, automation and cybersecurity. So a very busy man. Thank you very much to all of you for being here. Absolutely excellent panel. I'm sure you'll agree. I'm just going to put my timers here so we can stick to time. Don't forget as well, as I said, a huge part of tonight, as well as obviously gleaming the inside information that we will tonight, is the Q&A at the end. So if you've got any pressing questions, please save them until the end. We've allocated 15 minutes, and we will be here for networking after. Excellent. One important thing, as I said before, if you do need a top-up of drinks, just raise your hand. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm going to introduce you all with a question I think that's perhaps a little bit more aimed at you and your expertise before we have kind of the group discussion. So, Parul, we'll start with you. What's the biggest driver then, obviously, in your experience behind insurance organisations adopting AI specifically?
So let me start by giving you the context of insurance. And there's an anecdote or a parable. Underwriter, an actuary, and a biz dev guy are going in a car. The underwriter has her foot on the brake, and the biz dev guy is on the gas accelerator, and the actuary is looking through the back window telling them where to go. So this is the nature of insurance industry, very backward looking. So where is the biggest use cases for insurance? Insurance typically makes very small margins. Most of insurance industry profitability tends to come from when insurance capital is invested in the markets. So there is a very, very big focus on operational efficiency, making as many of the processes of underwriting, and policy administration and claims administration more automated. So that's operational excellence is one big use case. Second use case is underwriting itself, how we price risks. That is one big area where you're ingesting huge amount of information in order to understand what will cause a claim, because you need to price such that you won't be wiped out if a claim happens. So those are, and then customer interaction. How do you make them frictionless? So these are the three areas that insurance is using a lot of AI in.
Excellent. Thank you very much for those insights. Great to introduce you to the panel. Jane, great to have you with us here. I wonder if you could tell us then, what is your biggest challenge where AI is concerned right now?
My biggest challenge is once you move beyond that really exciting stage of test and learns, POCs, experiments, you've got cool things happening, everybody's exciting. And you're in the stage where you need to productionize, you need to get things properly working, not a novelty anymore, but something actually working in your business. So the challenges I'm seeing are the challenges of production, the challenges of when you have models that you know have value and you want to get them out there, how do you then re-architect your stack so that it can cope with this increased demand? How can you look at things like your data transformation layer, which you once looked at and thought, I'm amazing, it's cutting edge, I'm so ahead of my time. And now you think it's a big circle of spaghetti that is just confusing all of the algorithms you have running. I have problems like I thought that my profile, my customer identifier was really good. It was really sharp. And now you're thinking it's running models. It's running ML models, AI models, and it's taking far too long. I'm looking at 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. When I want milliseconds, I need a graph database. So these are lovely problems to have because they mean that you're beyond the experimentation phase, but they are also quite big problems because you suddenly have a whole landscape in front of you that you thought was amazing, and now you have to think about it again.
I like the positive spin you put on that, though. Lovely
Thanks.
problems to have. Dinesh, welcome. Great to have you with us. What's the big topics then around AI? Daniel spoke about some of them and introduced them, but if you could introduce to the audience, what are the biggest topics?
I work across industries. I work with clients across different domains. So the biggest question always is this just a hype? Is this overhyped? There is definitely a fatigue, AI fatigue that exists currently because you have top-down pressures. You have board members really being pushed on showing something that is happening with AI. What are you doing? You need to answer this question. So the pressure transcends down. At the CXO level, there is always this, okay, we need to now invest, we need to do something with AI. It comes down to the next level where there are a set of people who really don't know how to go about. They have heard something, seen some YouTube videos. So how do you really create something which is meaningful? That becomes the existential question. And then at the lowest level, you have a set of people who are actually moving the needle, actually doing work. How do you automate that? How do you bring about a process which is across, which spans across all the people, all the a population and really add value, right? So it is about how do you bring in AI which really creates value. We have seen it being used in pockets. It shows that it has potential, but how do you scale it? How do you make it real? How do you spread it across your organization and enable your whole organization? I think these are challenges and struggles that we have seen and that we are helping our clients with to navigate through.
Okay, thanks for the insight. Daniel, it's been a while, right down the end there. Thanks again for opening this evening. Can I also say, how much information did he pack into that? That was expert. You obviously have a wealth of experience in the area, and you spoke about some of the ethical issues as well as risks. But what I did like as well, as I think we've all got here, the positivity around the good that can be done. But I wonder if, much like I asked to Jay, what are the biggest challenges do you find at the moment that you're coming across with? I know it's a big, to call it AI in all its guises, but what are the challenges that you find around AI?
I think we get very excited about new emerging technologies. 7 years ago it was machine learning, now it's generative AI, and we think that those technologies are a panacea to solve all problems across our organization. And I think so. There's a misallocation of these technologies to solving the wrong problems, and then people blame the technology. It's not really the technology, it's just because you don't understand how to apply the technologies in the right way. And so I help people think about, really there are 3 aspects of your organization to apply AI to. The first one is core productivity. We're trying to figure out how do we write emails faster and PowerPoints faster, and as far as I'm concerned, everybody will benefit from those productivity improvements, but it will not differentiate your business. The second is, how do you apply AI to differentiating your supply chain, accelerating your transformation? And the third question some industries need to ask themselves is, how do I use AI to completely disrupt myself? And generative AI is not necessarily the answer to that. So the biggest challenge is really leadership, as you say, getting overexcited and rushing into applying the wrong technologies to solving the wrong problems.
Okay, thank you very much. Parul, we'll come back to you. What are the best practices that you've adopted or evolved in your AI strategy? I wonder if you could share some of those with us.
Yeah, so I was Chief Product Officer for 30 markets. And Chief Product is something that insurance industry doesn't understand. All technology and AI implementations are done as projects. The shift in mindset is that it's not once and done. You need to solve most compelling and most valuable of the organization's problem through expending money and data scientists and talent on a particular problem. Choose big, start small, and move quickly. So those are the things that I would suggest are very, very important in implementing and executing a valuable AI strategy or any kind of technology deployment strategy, in my experience.
Think big, start small, like it. Daniel, do you have anything to add on that in terms of best practices when implementing AI or perhaps scaling? Do you have any tips you can share?
I guess, obviously, by now you see that I'm quite controversial. I would ask yourself, honestly, have you ever built and deployed and scaled software in your organization? Have you got people using software that you've built? And if the answer is no, you're probably not going to do the same thing for AI. So there's a lot of excitement around trying to do this ourselves, but the reality is that you need to work with, if you haven't built software, you're going to have to work with partners to make sure that you can bring these technologies in, support them, and innovate them. So my worry is there's going to be a lot of misinvestment over the next few years with people thinking they can do themselves. So my advice is go to an expert and help you go on that journey.
Absolutely. I think you bring up a great point there about misinvestment. When you're looking for somebody to to come in and help, where would you start?
And you'll hear this over and over again, which is if somebody's coming in saying, let's build you a data lake, let's put Tableau on top and therefore you have AI, I think that's a bad decision. If somebody's coming in saying, we will help you identify the frictions across your organization, we'll help you understand how to apply the which frictions to go after. It might be that some of those frictions you can buy from an ERP or you can get from a startup, but there's some frictions that you need to solve yourself that will differentiate your business. So I think if somebody comes in and is value driven and helps you understand we can solve these frictions and then build your AI capability over time, I think that's a good signal.
Okay, thank you. Can you give us an example of how you've used AI to solve problems, maybe? Perhaps a business problem and you've been able to solve it using AI?
Yes. But it's going to sound really unimpressive after Daniel told us how to solve the problem of death. So sorry about that, but I'll try. The problem I'm trying to solve is that people don't find insurance very interesting. I know, crazy. Maybe a more intelligent articulation of this is I work for a company which sells digital insurance to small businesses. So what that means is you, Daniel, maybe a builder, Nikki, dog walking business owner, Marcus, birthday clown business owner. You log onto our site and you fill in a form and it takes you through many questions so we can give you quotes and choice. And we lose people on this journey. They get bored. They find it too much hassle, too much faff. So we have built a suite of AI models that are constantly monitoring your propensity to drop off, to just get bored, click that X and leave us. So the second that Daniel, Nikki, Marcus, you arrive on the site, we know things about you already. From very early on, we can see your behavior, the way you answer questions, the way that your mouse is lingering over things. We can see how likely you are to drop off our form and close or to stay. Now, once you start looking like, not really feeling this, we can start to pop you interventions. Maybe they're social proofing, 5% of, what did I say, you were a
Dog walker,
Yes,
50%
50% of dog walkers insure with us. Or we could pop you up a little bit later if you're looking bored again. We could pop you another intervention. You look like you've had enough of the questions. Would you like a quick indicative price? You don't have to keep filling in questions. Or we could pop you up a little AI video to help you with a question that looks tough, a little chatbot that you can interact with. But we're constantly drawing you back into this form. And we've seen good success with this, and success is easy in the website world for us to measure because we can simply see who's buying against our control. We A/B test everything. So I guess that's one way that we've solved the problem of people just not loving insurance.
Excellent. I'm sold. Next time I need to insure my dog walking
Yes.
business, I'll be there. Dinesh, what about you? Can you give us a practical example then of how you've used AI or worked with partners to use AI to solve the problem?
Probably a couple of examples, very different from in different areas. We have been doing software testing for a long time now. We are experts in it, 30 years plus. We have been in this business. A lot of the work has been manual. But when it is manual and repetitive, it becomes a good use case to actually try and see how we can put automation. And the next step is putting AI into it. So we have actually built a set of models which can build use cases, looking at business requirements, build the test cases which can then be automated all in a single flow by using AI. And it can be very specific to industries, for insurance industries, for banking, for manufacturing. So it actually helps to take away a lot of the grunt work, and people can focus on more value-added activities, right? So this is one of the areas that we have worked on. Another area that we do quite a lot in is we are also an engineering consulting company, which means we have quality inspectors go out and inspect cars coming out of a production line, planes coming out of a production line. And these quality inspectors need to be trained, extreme technical training, certifications, exams that they need to go through, typically up to 6 months and millions of euros or pounds spent to actually train them, put them through the training, and then they are ready to do these inspections. So we have actually created aids, AI-based agents, which can actually take up technical questions from these quality inspectors, and they sit in a classroom for a shorter duration and land earlier in inspections, aided with these kind of tools. And this helps them to answer questions, get to technical content much faster in a much more simplified way, and they don't need to depend on a human tutor, coach all the time. So we have reduced the cost of training, we have reduced the duration of training, and also increased the quality that we can deliver to our clients. So these are a couple of examples where we have used AI.
Excellent. It's always really interesting, I think, to hear about real case studies so that people have something tangible to think about ways maybe they could use it. Perhaps not the same example, but it just gets the cogs working, doesn't it? Daniel, Parul, do you have anything to add about maybe some examples you could give about how you've solved a problem with AI, something we might not have thought of?
Okay, I'm going to stay in the insurance area. one of the very interesting generative AI use cases that we deployed in my company was around cause of loss. Now, we write really large risks, like energy casualty. If the oil rig catches fire, the insurer pays for the damage. And what we found was that loss adjusters sent us reams and reams of written and typed notes. And the claims person who was reading it, there were so many reasons for this fire. They were just putting it as miscellaneous. Now, what happens when people are shortcutting the labor is then when you're pricing that particular risk, you overinflate the risk of fire in a particular place. There could be some other electricity-led reasons. So what we deployed this generative AI, it was GPT 3.5, with a partner with insurance industry expertise. So insurance industry expertise and ability to understand the context is an important thing for the partner, for us, for choice of partner. We trained the GPT 3.5 model with our loss adjusters to identify what could be various reasons for losses. And that really brought down the time of loss adjustment, also improved significantly the accuracy of pricing those risks for the future losses. And that's a big, big expense lines for insurance. Between 40 to 80% we spend on claims. So that was a big, big saving because of that particular use case.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Daniel, have you got any ways that you can perhaps share with us of how you solve problems? Something maybe a bit different.
A bit different, okay. So my PhD 20 years ago was trying to model the brain of bumblebees. Bumblebees have 1 million brain cells. Their brains can fit on the end of a needle, and they do amazing things. They navigate 3D worlds, and they talk to each other. They don't handle windows very well, but ultimately, they're very smart creatures. And now we can model brains that have billions of neurons, and we currently call these large language models. Now, I would argue large language models are really good at knowing things about the world, and they're really good at telling you what they know about the world through imagery and text, so content creation. WPP is in the business of creating ads, and I'm just going to geek out a second. This is really important. There are 4 ways of making brains smart. A large language model is a little bit like an intoxicated graduate. And one way of making an intoxicated graduate smart is by asking it better questions, prompting. And you won't be able to construct a prompt detailed enough to create, for example, the Expleo logo. You just won't understand the colors and the fonts. Prompting gets you about 20% good. The next way of making a brain smart is by giving it your brand guidelines, your tone of voice, or your materials. You ask it some questions, and it looks at your guidelines, and it answers them. That will get you to about 40% good. The next way of making a brain smart is taking that graduate and turning it into a professor or an expert. Now, it takes human beings years of training and trial and error and experimentation to become experts. In our world, that currently takes weeks. But what we do in WPP to create brand-specific content, which we call brand brains, is we create what is called, I guess, a council or agents of experts. So in the real world, you have somebody that's an expert at your brand guidelines, your imagery, your tone of voice, your written copy, and you get all of those people in a room to coordinate and collaborate and come up with a really good solution. And so the point here is that if you want to create AIs that give you really, really good solutions, you probably need to take this agentic approach. Agents that you turn into professors. So that's one way we solve problems.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I always think it's really interesting to get a range of different ideas so that it gets everybody thinking and sort of involved. Right, you did touch upon it at the top, the ethical and responsible side of AI, which is obviously a huge topic. We're not going to go massively into it, but I am interested to know, and Harold, we'll come to you, how do you ensure personally that you're ethical and responsible with the AI that you are implementing? And how do you stay compliant? Because that, I mean, it's massive. I don't expect you to give us a very in-depth answer to that, but it is a massive consideration for people, isn't it? Being ethical, responsible, and also compliant. Do you have any tips to share?
Yeah, so for organization, there is, I would advise that you set up on policy basis responsible AI as a governance framework and make it very accessible so that people can reference it very quickly. And this framework should be advised on various AI regulations and updated as the regulations become more known, and there is greater regulations which are coming from EU at the moment, but there is developments happening in California and in rest of the states as well, and UK is also coming up with its own frameworks. So have a company-wide policy and make it easily accessible and known, and don't leave it to second guessing with people thinking, hey, am I doing the right thing or not? Be very, very accessible and available in responsible AI. So that's worked very well in the organizations that I've worked with and worked for.
Okay. Daniel, anything to add on that one? I know you did bring it up at the start, talking about the ethical side. But in terms of maybe, you know, as we spoke about there, compliance, how do you ensure that you stay compliant? Is this where it's important to work maybe with a partner or an expert? Can you give us any tips?
Yeah, well, multiple tips. Oh gosh, where do I even begin? So it's really good to ask yourself those three questions. Is the intent appropriate? Are my algorithms explainable? And what happens if it goes very right? So one of the things, sorry to keep referring back to WPP, but one of the things that we're doing in WPP is we create what is called a Council of Responsible AIs. So we can now create content incredibly quickly across our supply chain. And it used to be that human beings have to test that content for compliance, for claims that are being made. But we can now build brains that represent every corner of society: political parties, newspapers, minority groups, cultures, food compliance claims, ad claims, sustainability claims. So when you're creating any content across your supply chain, you can now show it to these thousands of representatives to see if you're triggering any communities, causing any harm or breaking any laws. So I'm a big fan of obviously humans checking this, but in a world where we're now creating much more information, much more content, we need to actually also use AI to help us.
Okay, thank you very much. Dinesh, anything to add on that then, in terms of being ethical, responsible, and very importantly, compliant as well with all the changes that are happening?
Yeah, I think sometimes we tend to blame AI that it is biased, but actually the underlying data that has been used to train the AI is actually biased. And it is historical data which has been picked up from your own organization, which has been used to train the AI, and it is showing the bias, right? So it is also about really understanding what are you using to train. And so you have seen this or read about these news items where you say that you're using AI to actually shortlist or filter resumes, and then you figure out that you are having some racial bias, gender-related bias. It doesn't come because of the AI itself. It comes because of the inherent nature of the data which has been used to train the algorithm. So it is about understanding that, cleaning, clearing, making sure you can use trusted data which is balanced. That's one. The second is, while I know it is difficult to always, for very large output, to really have human in the loop, but with most of the clients we work with, we still see human in the loop as a very essential part of verifying the output of AI that comes, and make sure that as a human being, am I able to accept, as a rational human being using common sense, am I able to accept what AI is generating? And the third part is adding some explainability to the AI. How is it picking up the answers, solutions? Is there some element of, let's say, something that is getting generated on its own? Because as Daniel started off the talk earlier this evening, it is in many cases an opaque way of generating answers. So you ask the same question again another time, you might get a different answer. So it's not always rational that way. So there are checks and balances that need to be built in, and it is being done all the time and has to be a conscious part of that AI building effort. So.
Can I bring that to life with a thought experiment, which is should touch upon all your points. So imagine you're on the board of a ride-hailing company, and you've deployed an AI, and you've given the AI the task to set prices, and it really does it very well. And so you look inside the AI, you make it explainable, and you realize that the AI has access to battery data. And when your battery is very low on your phone, people are willing to spend more money on their ride. Essentially, it's exploiting, you're vulnerable and it's exploiting you. It doesn't know it's exploiting you, right? It's just correlated more money with low battery. So first of all, you need to make it explainable, because then you would surface that insight. And then you, as a board, need to decide, am I okay with that? Is the intent appropriate? You could change the intent. You could say, actually, I'm going to prioritize rides because people are vulnerable, or I'm going to remove that data so we don't have that bias, or I'm going to make sure chargers are in those cars. So explainability will help you surface those problems, and then there needs to be a governance, a committee to determine whether the intent is appropriate.
Excellent, thank you for that. Love that one. Okay, we haven't got loads of time left. I knew this would happen. Once you get chatted, it just flies by, doesn't it? But we're scratching the surface in. As I say, we do have the Q&A for you, so please do have those questions ready. Now, if you were a CIO of an organisation, what is the first thing or first couple of things that you would do to integrate AI into your organisation for those that perhaps are in that position right now? Where would you start, Harold? Start with Jane. What's the first thing that you would do then, CIO of the organisation?
Skunkworks. Okay, I was just going to say skunkworks and leave it there, but I'll elaborate. People familiar with the concept? Yeah, some people nodding. So I have told this story before. I'm sorry if you've heard it before, but my father was a builder. And after you've built one house, two houses, three houses, as a builder, what you start to get is excess capacity. So we would have piles of timber, piles of concrete at our house, which is how I came to have a 3-story tree house when I was 10. It's very popular that summer. Yeah, it's a good summer. So this was on my mind a lot when I first started as Chief Data Officer, because my mandate was not AI at all. It was to solve the problems of the business, so reporting, data availability. AI wasn't something the business were really interested in, but it was my mission. We will move from InsurTech to Insure AI. So I had to do this. I had to sort of be that CIO that thought, how am I going to start? And indeed, how was I going to start with constant demands from a business that was concerned with everything but AI? So I started to carve out what we call the skunkworks. It's those piles of timber, those piles of concrete, that bit of capacity that you can start to run your own projects. They can be small. You can do something very small that solves a small problem, like maybe on the front of your website. You lose a lot of people when they have to enter their trade. We insure many, many thousands of trades. If you are someone whose business is, the dog walker, the plumber, dog walker, thank you, great. But if you're someone who runs a cafe but maybe also imports fabrics, how do you force something like that into a drop down? So we came up with a large language model that you could type in natural language what you did, and it would fit you to trade, which doesn't sound that impressive. It doesn't sound that much, but it really decreased the drop-off we'd see on that part of our form. It solved a problem. So once we'd been able to create that secretly in our skunkworks with our skunk team, you were able to say, look what we can do. Give us a little bit more capacity, give us a bit more time, give us a bit more freedom, and then it all started from there. So just to go back to your question, was if you're a CIO, where do you start? Skunkworks.
Excellent, thank you very much. Dinesh, where would you start then? If you're a CIO of the company, you want to integrate AI, what tips can you give us for where to start? What foundations do you need to have?
Yeah, I think the first thing as a CIO to do is bust this myth that it is a CIO problem, AI implementation. No. It is a business problem which will be solved by the CIO using AI. So you need to have business going along with you, which means identifying tough problems which need a solution, a technology solution, and then making sure that it is an AI solution. In a lot of cases, like Daniel was saying, it is sometimes an ERP that is required, or an automation, a routine task that needs to be automated. It is not always an AI solution. And then in AI, is it really a Gen AI solution, or you require traditional AI is required? So it is about identifying business problems, tying a value to it. Now the value is either an increase upside in revenue, or you decrease the cost, you increase efficiency, you make things faster, you reduce customer churn. So create certain parameters that you associate with the business value, and then you go ahead. Everything else comes later. The technology that you will use, the infrastructure, which is the latest and greatest out there that you need to apply, all that comes later. There are so many solutions that are available. Probably that is the smallest part of the problem. The biggest problem is identifying the problem, creating the business case, and then going after it.
Excellent, thank you. Daniel, what about you? CIO of the organisation, where did they start to implement AI? And I'm going to tag an extra question on there as well. Perhaps where can organisations like Expleo help in that journey with support?
So I think that that's absolutely right. For organizations that are not necessarily going to be completely disrupted by AI. So if you're moving goods around, if you're growing stuff, generative AI at least is not going to really make a dent in that. I would be controversial again and say that the first thing the CIO needs to do is hire a chief AI officer. You know, there's lots of people that are rebranding themselves as AI experts, even 10 years, right? Would you bring somebody into your organization that's just passed the bar to head up your legal counsel? No. I think if you really want to be differentiated and disrupted, you need to have people that have deep expertise in AI, that understand how these technologies are going to merge so you can apply the right bets to solving the right problems. And I think that Expleo has that expertise.
Excellent, thank you very much. Anything to add, Parul, before we let everyone get a drink?
As someone who's sat in XCOM for many years, I can tell you, if your big idea is not tied to the organization's strategy, you will not get funding. So the biggest bit is, if you are in a strat cycle where they say that the goal of the organization is to grow in US market, your AI deployment will get funded only if you're doing something in US market. So tie back your AI strategy or your automation strategy or your transformation strategy to the organization's goal. How do you do it? There are mechanisms like cascading OKRs, objectives and key results, where you tie up each of your projects to the biggest outcome that you need to drive for the organization. Be very, very clear when you're building your business case, as Dinesh says, that it is the outcome that the organization wants to solve in this strategy cycle. Yeah. Otherwise, you get no funding and your projects get shut down as vanity projects. So you've got to deliver results through tie back to the strategy.
Absolutely. And a fabulous note to end on for now. Thank you very much. We've got just 5 minutes. If you do need to nip to the loo, please do go. Please don't go too far, though, because we're going to start again in 5 minutes, where it's your chance to ask the questions. Hopefully, we've given you enough to wet your whistle, but if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, we've got 15 minutes. Please go and get yourselves a drinks top-up, and we will be back at 25 past to answer those all-important questions. But could you give our panellists a round of applause for now? You can have a little breather. Thank you.